Is it recording?
Okay, we're gonna get started. Put your phones away. Put your phones away. We're getting started.
I feel like over time I
You have your stuff? Put your phone away.
Wait, what did I do?
I know it's cramped in here and it makes it harder to listen and stuff, but we're only going to be here for half the time today, and then we're going to go do kind of a discovery on our own, okay? So, so I'll just ask you to mellow out, kind of relax, maybe stop all the other stuff you're doing, and then, you know, if we get through this faster, then you get out faster. So, you know, we don't have a ton of stuff tonight. So, we're moving on to Affirmation 12. I know it's the last affirmation, but it's not really for you guys because we're going out of order. Does anybody remember why we go out of order? What? Nope. Anybody remember why we do the affirmations out of order? No? Well, the first four affirmations talk about love of God. And the second four affirmations talk about love of neighbor. And the last four talk about love of self. So instead of, hey, you can stop drawing on her now. Okay. So instead of just focusing on love of God for a whole, you know, semester or more, we break it up to look at God, self, and others. So today, affirmation 12. Somebody want to read that?
Sure.
Okay.
Acting on faith that we were born with meaning and purpose. Vocation and ministry that serve to strengthen and extend God's realm of love.
That was very good reading. Thank you, Brant. So, does anybody believe that you were born with a meaning? 3, 4, 7. Born with a meaning. Like, what does that mean, born with a meaning?
I think humans were born to reproduce.
That's it?
Well, that's what my science teacher told me.
So the most important thing for you is your kid?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Oh my god.
There might be more. I don't. That's a big part of life, though. Definitely. I mean, it gives you a lot of meaning. But I believe that I am more than just a father. And I am a father. I don't know if you all do that. But, what else does it mean to be born with a meaning? What does that mean? Yeah.
We all grow up and we all have something that we do in our life, and we all do something important one way or another, so we're all born with something important that we're going to do eventually.
Okay. So you talk about doing. So you're going to do something important, or at least as you feel is important. And so that's another piece of identity. We're not only about doing, right?
I feel like humans, when they're born, I mean, later in their life, they decide their meaning.
Oh.
Because you can say,
Like after college?
like you can say, I want to create a company. You can say, I want to cook. And then that can be your meaning.
Okay. So you can create your own meaning, and I think there's a lot of truth to that. That you decide, you know, you choose something, right? Yeah.
Who tells you to choose those things though?
You.
Yeah, but
No, she's asking a serious question. Who tells you to choose
you to do that? What makes you like those things?
So what are you getting
Would it be
at?
like the society or God?
mean.
So Lily, expand on that.
Like, if everyone else is like, I'm gonna go right, are you gonna go and cook left?
Sure.
Or if God told you to go right, would you still go left?
If I really wanted to.
It's kind of like a movie. There's a saying, and
Hang on, Shay's got something.
I'm absolutely
All right, you don't have to get everything.
it's kind of like a movie when there's an option safety and then death, then they go death.
Okay, but what we're talking about here is, are we born with a meaning, you know? Are we born with a purpose for our lives? And, okay,
Our purpose of life is to give life a purpose.
okay,
That's neat.
that's a good one. I like that. Purpose of life is to give life a purpose. Rachel?
I believe that the purpose of life is to try and
We can't hear
help
Rachel.
others and help others, and also to just kind of learn so you can pass on the knowledge.
Learning and
to
helping others. And helping others is a little bit in this, that serve to strengthen and extend God's realm of love. I mean, I think that's about helping others, you know, and learning.
I feel like we're kind of born useless because when we're born we don't really like do anything. But then we just kind of, as we grow up, we just figure it out.
So you create your
Okay. So, you figure it out. How do you figure it out? How do you figure it out?
How did you figure it out?
We'll talk about that.
I don't know, you just grow up, I guess.
So do you think there's certain things that you're born with? Like
Yes.
personality or passions or strengths or skills? Like some people are really good at finding their way places and other people aren't so good at it. Do you think that's something that you're like kind of born with, or is that something that, you know, a learning thing?
I think like personalities, it's really like who you're around when you start off. Because
Okay.
like they have an effect on you and you like pick up after that.
Okay, so that's like called environment. You know, there's your nature or there's environment, and that's environment. Like your family affects your personality, and your family affects what's important to you.
I'd like to say this because this is something that is a fact about me. I have a personality so I said ODD, but I've had it since I was born. So, like literally, I showed signs of ODD when I was like 3 months old. I would do little things that would,
Okay.
So I don't see how you cannot be born with a slight personality at least, and maybe it goes as you get older and it
Yeah.
could change, but
Okay.
I don't see how
Who
that.
else had something? Yeah.
Well, your experiences kind of shape who you are as a person as well, because that's how we learn as people. We go through experiences and then we learn from our mistakes and from our achievements.
Okay. Not everybody has the same experiences, even within the same family. You know, so you're gonna have a different kind of knowledge about how life works, or what you can do, or how things happen, or what you're good at, you know, in those experiences. Because some experiences are bad, you know, and people in general, I mean, have a different amount of bad experiences versus good experiences, and those can definitely play part of how you're made and how you think, you know. I think that would be another example of how environment can shape us. But I think we're also just born with a certain thing about us, you know. Maybe you can't put your finger quite on it, but there's a certain thing. Maybe it comes through passion, maybe it comes through strength, skill, personality, and I think it's a little different for everyone. So the affirmation that we're talking about is actually, you know, we don't have to know exactly where it came from, but we really want to find it. You know, we want to find what brings us meaning in life. We want to find, you could say, we want to find what we were made for. And that would definitely imply like that we were born with this thing, you know, if we were made to do this thing. Or, you know, find the thing that makes you the most happy and fulfilled. And you could call it your vocation. Have you heard that word before, vocation? So that's vocation's beyond job. You know, you might say, well, what were you born to be? You know, a train engineer, of course, you know. And that may be true, but that's a job. That may not be like what your whole life is about. See?
Didn't God create us just because he was like creating the world? Like for like not entertainment, for like inhabiting. So technically,
Yeah, sure.
So technically, isn't our purpose like? Yeah.
Our purpose is entertainment?
Yeah.
Like entertaining God?
Yeah, because.
Okay, well, we're going to go a different direction than that.
If you're saying like he creates us, then he puts us on earth.
Okay, so there's another idea a lot of times in the Christian faith, and it's talked a lot about here at Countryside, and that's the idea of calling, which is similar to vocation. So we're going to kind of use those words interchangeable. Calling, like the thing that you are called to do, is kind of similar to the thing that you were made for, the thing that you were created for, you know. So calling actually comes. Will this work? Yes. In one of the earliest chapters of Genesis, God calls out to. Do you know who the guy is that he called out to? Abraham. It's before Abraham. This is Adam. Adam and Eve were in the garden, and they are hiding from God, and so God actually calls out, Adam, where are you? It's like this is God. God knows where Adam is. Come on. You know, what? Yeah. Hey, guys, we're doing this. Okay? We can do notes later. And then, I think somebody just said it. There's the famous call. Where God calls Abraham, what he was called Abram before he was called Abraham. And, okay, let's just have all the side conversations wait for a little while, okay? Okay. All right, we'll get through it faster. God called Abraham that he was going to be the father of nations of people, and this was one of the famous covenants, but it began with a call from God to Abraham, which is kind of interesting. It wasn't Abraham just discovering God. God calls out, and Abraham says, oh, okay. And same with Moses. When God was trying to get his people free from slavery in Egypt, God called Moses out of a burning bush. You know, that's what got Moses' attention. There's this bush burning, but it wasn't being consumed. So God called to him from in the middle of the bush. Put the phone down.
I'm sorry, I wasn't using
Good. And then, I don't know if you knew this part either, but people didn't just choose to be followers of Jesus. Jesus actually called people. So in this part, he's walking down the beach and he calls to Peter. And basically, that's how all the disciples come to be following Jesus. Do you know what a disciple is? It's like a follower, somebody who learns from their rabbi or master, apprentice. And so, actually, Jesus chose all the apprentices. He went around and said, "You follow me," and they were eager to do it. But he called. So we get this idea that, and the church has adopted this kind of idea that God calls people, to do a certain thing. And that's really just another word for finding what you are made to do. And when you find it, it's a really cool feeling. So like I discovered that. I went to school. Do you know what I went to school for?
Knowledge education. So you get a job.
You guys are good. Oh, you're good too. What was my job gonna be? All right. I went to school to be a missionary pilot. So, yeah, you fly missionaries into the jungle and stuff like that. And I got attracted to that profession when I was on a mission trip in high school. And so I was like, God, if you want me to be a missionary pilot, get me into this program. It was like the best program in the country for, they call it missionary aviation technology. And I got in, and I went for a year and a half. And I discovered, I was at a retreat with the other people that were in the same program. And the guy said, well, some of you may have prayed the prayer, like, God, if you want me to do this, get me into this program, you know. And he's like, it doesn't quite work like that. Like sometimes we let somebody in that maybe God didn't, you know, decide to. So it just doesn't work like that. God's not like ding, and then oh, okay. So I discovered in thinking about that really wasn't for me. You know, I'm much more of a people person than a bush pilot. Flying and fixing planes all day. I mean, it was just kind of like for me it was a dream. But then when I discovered that, I want to do something more with people, and I met with this guy who suggested to me to go into youth ministry, and I was like, oh, you can do that? People go into youth ministry? That's weird. And so, but when he suggested it, it was kind of like a light bulb lit up, like a ding happened, and I was like, yeah. Because I had worked at camps and I really liked, being a camp counselor and doing that kind of stuff. So it seemed like a natural fit to go into youth ministry. And so I did that. And I was in my last church, which was right down the road, First Covenant, Omaha. And I really felt like, I didn't even know where Nebraska was.
Where are you from?
But I'm from Massachusetts. And we had this phone conversation with the church, and something just kind of clicked in that conversation where it was like, I kind of felt like we were on the same page, And then I came out here, and it was a rough start to my job, but eventually, after a few years, maybe like 3 or 4, I was like, yeah, this is what I was made for. I felt like I had the stuff that was internal. I don't know how it got there. Maybe it was some environment. Maybe it was I was born with it. But I was like, this is what I am cut out to do. And I think there's other things that I could do as well. But I had this sense that I was where I was supposed to be, and I was doing what I was supposed to be doing. And that was pretty cool. I mean, that can motivate you for a very long time. So, does anybody know what you want to do with the rest of your life? Yeah?
I want to be an actress.
Yes, one.
Okay. And you feel like that's what you were made to do, to be an actress? Yeah, you love it?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
I want to be a trauma therapist.
A what?
Trauma therapist. It's a
Drama
therapist who uses drama and theater to do physical therapy for people who are like in wheelchairs and things. Most of the time for people that have coordination issues.
Neat. Ava?
I want to be a graphic designer because I've always liked to draw. And it's just something that like I've improved so much over the years, and it's just like every single year or every single month I just get better and better. And when I look back at my old art, I'm just like,
Guys, please stop talking.
and I can see my improvement because I look back at my old art and I'm like, oh my god, that's what I drew.
Now, drawing is a thing like, you can't just say, I'm going to be a drawer. Like I couldn't say that because I can't draw. You know, I suppose if I went to some school and, you know, learned how, but I still don't think I would have what it takes to be an artist, you know? I think I could, like, do what mechanically you're supposed to do, but it wouldn't come alive like a real artist could make it come alive.
I want to get an MBA and a JD.
JD?
Yeah,
What's JD?
for like law.
You want to be a lawyer?
Yeah, and I want to run a business.
Oh.
Yeah, I wanna do.
And what, why do you think you were made to do that?
I don't know.
What in there, like, are there skills, are there,
Well, I love arguing.
oh, you love arguing.
Um,
Come on, you guys, somebody else is talking.
It's
Okay, and that would make you happy? And-
yeah, and I like being in charge.
Okay, I hope you're made for those things. Yeah,
I want to be a lawyer.
well,
I like arguing and I like finding things wrong in like plans and stuff and correcting people about that and like reading policies and seeing loopholes.
see now, if you like that, that's very interesting, because not everybody likes that. Like basically like reading a contract for the problems in it and correcting them. You got, who likes doing that?
I like correcting
Yeah.
people's problems.
So like, how does that happen? How do you get that, how do you get that thing in you that wants to do something like that?
I don't know.
I know, right? But it's there. So this is what the calling aspect is like. It's like, well, I'm called to be a lawyer because I want to read these documents, and that's the thing that I love to do. And so other people are like, I am totally not called to that. That's why we don't have just one calling, you know. Sometimes in the church they only apply the word calling to doing ministry in a church or being a pastor or something like that. But really, calling is a lot more about finding your place in the world, finding what you were made for. And we really hope here that you find that. I mean, that's like one of our biggest goals at Countryside, is for everybody to find what they were made for. Yeah.
I want to go into business and law.
Why?
Where'd you get that?
I don't know. Or just like selling things. And then I like proving people wrong and like arguing and just winning.
Turn their own words against them.
Okay. Maybe look for the things that might benefit other people. Yeah?
I want to be a doctor because I like helping people.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, some people are kind of more geared toward helping people and being in service to others.
What are you drawing?
Yeah.
I just have a question that just occurred to me. So we're speaking a lot about
Hey guys.
what passion, I'm about passion, what we're passionate about, what we feel called to. And there's vocation and there's also hobbies as well. So what is there a difference between the things we're passionate about to make a livelihood versus that nourish or fulfill us outside of livelihood? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Do you think there's a difference between your hobbies and then the thing that you kind of major in a way? Is that what we're talking about?
I like the right place, and
Is that a hobby then, or is
yeah, I
that?
think that's a hobby.
Okay.
But I really like the right place, mainly about things that I feel are wrong with the world. So and I usually get very emotional with them, so they usually very dramatic. So I've made people cry. So.
Did you make cry?
Okay.
But I get my point across, and I usually end up being the message.
Like for example, someone who's really passionate about playing music or loves music, but it's not what they, professionally, it's not what they could do to make money, but they just like doing it on the side. I mean,
That's
versus
like an
people,
avocation.
versus people who are like, no, this is what I want to do my whole life is just music. I don't know. I mean, it's like, how do you discern that, the difference between those two?
yeah, I think that can be challenging. And you don't want the thing you're made for to be your whole life, you know. It's just that's a bigger emphasis in your life. But you might have other interests as well, like doing music. So when does your hobby actually become that thing you were made for? And that's, I mean, for each person to figure out for themselves. But that's what my daughter's wrestling with. She wants to go on the road, and she's not sure how to do it, and it's trying to break into the music world is like really challenging. So you got to know that that's your love, and she claims it is. And I don't know, maybe it is a hobby, and the work of it, when it becomes work, you know, might not be as fun as the hobby. So, all right. So here's another kind of way to look at it. This is your vocation. This is what you're passionate about, kind of like what Ty was just talking about. What are you passionate about, and what does the world need? So if you're only passionate about yourself, you know, you're going to have a kind of limited scope of the world. But where it combines with what the world needs, then you find kind of your calling. So teachers, you know, teachers are passionate about teaching kids and watching them develop and learn things.
No.
All of them.
No.
Why else would they do it? They're not doing it for the money. No. And what does the world need but, you know, education? That's a major need in the world, especially in our country. And so I think the teaching career is primarily based on a calling, because the money stinks and you get treated like junk a lot of times, you know? Yeah?
Well, maybe I think some of the reason people in this room feel like teachers don't want to, or like they don't have the best interest because they don't seem that, I don't know, they don't seem that passionate about what they do. Maybe it's because when they had that calling, maybe by the time that they started to teach, and they've done it for so long and it's so grueling, like, they kind of regret it, you know? Kind of like how you did, like, for the missionary pilot, but you kind of backed out of it before it was too late, but like, once you're a teacher for that long, you kind of...
Yeah, some teachers burn out. I think some teachers lose their passion. Maybe some teachers, misread their calling. But I think for the most part, you know, that's the kind of profession that you're called into. It's like some other professions, you know, the money could be calling you, the travel, the fun, you know. But teaching's kind of a grind.
I think when you get into high school and start taking classes that are preparing you for college, or you could take AP classes or honors classes, you'll find teachers who are passionate about what they teach. But I do think at middle school, I can see where you would have that perception of teachers.
They were nice in elementary school.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's their age.
And teachers' passion in teaching is not classroom management. Their passion is the material. Hello? Hello? The passion is the material that they're teaching and the students' growth. Classroom management is not a calling. You might as well work at a juvenile detention center.
That actually be fun. You could make use of the air of your brain.
Yeah.
No, not like that.
All right, we need a little break to talk it out.
Wait, what's this hard?
I'll give you a 2-minute break to talk to your friends.
What's this hard?
We're gonna do
From the bike. literally gone. But it looks like it's not as bad as like surgery.
Where's my phone?
How do you do that? Oh, isn't that down?
Yeah.
How'd you go to school?
Do you guys follow official media? That's what all the
Okay, 2 minutes is up. No. All right, we're gonna finish off. So if we can get your attention back, that'd be great. Here's another diagram. So it's pretty similar. It adds a word, strength. So not only passion but skill, and I think that would come in like with the artistic avenue, you know, drawing. I mean, you can't just have passion to draw. You know, you have to have some skill. So, Caduce, it'd be nice if you turn around. And here's a few different ways for those of you who still might not know what you were made for or what your vocation is or your calling. But here's how you can determine it. One thing is, what do you love to do? Sometimes people think that your calling is about doing the thing you don't like to do. You know, oh, I really love to do this, but I'm called to do this. Crap. Are you talking about this? You guys, let's stop the conversation. Talk about this. So, generally, your calling is something you love to do. You know, so you got to figure that out first. What do you really love to do? And then you pursue that kind of thing. What are you really good at? You know, those are kind of connected, what you love to do and what you're good at. A lot of times we love what we do because we're good at it. Maybe you're good at playing basketball, so you're like, I love playing basketball. You know? Anybody have a thing that you love to do that you're good at?
I'm a baller.
Anybody have a thing you love to do that you're good at?
tennis.
Besides games, because most of you are not going to go into professional sports. Face painting. Okay. Okay, a few more minutes. So, here's another important piece that you might not be aware of is what do other people think you're good at? So, sometimes you get into a thing where you are like, man, I am so good at this. I love to do this. Can you guys just stop talking? So you might get into something, I love to do this, I'm so good at it. And then you start doing it, and people around you are like, you're not so good at it. You know, and they might be mean about it, or they might just say, look, this isn't for you. So like at Countryside, we have this term sweet spot, you know. Find your sweet spot in the church, and maybe you volunteer to teach Sunday school, and then somebody's like, I don't think that's your sweet spot. That's the way they say it, to be nice, you know. I don't think that's your sweet spot. Maybe you should try something else. So maybe they go and they serve in the community cupboard, and then so here you're kind of trying to find out, well, where is my sweet spot? What do I like to do? And what do other people think that I am good at? So this is kind of like a confirmation, because we're in confirmation. It's like a confirmation of your calling. So you have your own personal, like what you feel like either God's calling you to do or what you were made to do, and then it's confirmed by other people. And then you take that experience over time. And has that been confirmed over time? Another confirmation. So, you can't just be like the first day. You go in, and something goes wrong with your day, and you're like, oh, I thought this was my calling. This stinks. I have to work with this person, and this is what I was going to be all about. Or you go in and it's like an amazing day, and then months later something goes wrong. It's more like over time. So I was at my last church for 18 years, and over time it became more and more clear to me that I was in the place where I was supposed to be. I wasn't going to leave there forever. So I was like,
Were you a prisoner?
oh, they wanted me to leave. So.
Oh! You got fired?
No,
You can call it that. You don't have to call it that. But I was like committed. I was like, I don't think pastors should always move around and stuff. And I was like, this is the place. So that was how I felt about it over a long time.
Do you like this church better?
I do like this church better. But I love the people. I love the people that I worked with.
Why'd you get fired?
No, he wasn't
We had some differences of opinion.
What were these opinions?
What?
What were the why'd you get paid leave?
The senior pastor and I did not see eye to eye on things. So.
What just
Okay, the next step is what does your gut say? Your intuition. Does it feel right? That's kind of like, does it feel right? And a lot of times, I think we're led by our intuition. There's just this gut feeling, and a lot of times when you find what you're made for, there's a peace that comes with that. There's a peace of mind. So like when the guy told me maybe you should consider youth ministry, it just felt good. It felt like because I was trying to force myself into these other places I was thinking about going, like this crazy bush pilot thing. And so when I came across this idea, it made me feel better. So there might be some of that involved. And is that calling forever? No. No. Maybe you're called for a certain amount of time, and that's what you're made for, but that can change, And you're going to hear a story next week about a guy who, felt called to a certain thing, and then it changed dramatically. And he really believes that he was called to the next thing. So he's a really cool guy. You'll meet him next week.
But why will you?
And like for me, I felt called to the church I was at for 18 years and more. I mean, I was going to stay there longer. But when I got let go, and I don't know if you've heard this about how I got here, but I was in between churches, and somebody from the congregation called and said, oh, Countryside's looking for a youth director. And I was like, I can't do that. It's like right down the street, you know? And so I just hung up. I was like, yeah, whatever. And then about 3 months later, I got a call from somebody else in Countryside that said, Countryside is still looking for a youth director. I was like, I can't do that.
Conservative.
Yeah, here.
Wait, we're countryside?
And then about 6 months later, one of my good friends who was my boss at a place where I was working, his neighbor goes to Countryside, and he said, oh, my neighbor said Countryside's still looking for a youth director, and this like ding light went off, and I was like, might as well give it a try.
So you're mad
So-
And now you're here.
No, and when I got here, I felt like
Maybe that was your calling.
this is what I was made for. You know, I was really.
And then you hated it, and then you came in.
You guys are both at the same time, so literally. Yeah. We look alike too.
Oh yeah, because I was a mechanic.
Look at my butt, it's so bad.
All right.
I will check the time using this handy dandy gadget.
Okay. How much time do we have? 10 minutes. Okay, Kyle's got something to say.
I just want to share this, just another perspective of how calling was introduced to me. So when I was in college doing my program, I had to do internships, and just somehow I got into a youth ministry internship. And then they got a new pastor there, and whatever feedback she was hearing, she requested my audience, as they would say. She wanted to meet with me. And she was asking me, so what do you want to do? Kind of determine what do you feel called to? And I was like, well, I'm going to be a hospital chaplain. That's what I'm kind of getting trained for. This is what I put all this work into. And then she asked me why. I'm like, because I did all this work, and because, it was just like, because I'm determined to finish what I started. And there really wasn't. And then she's like, okay, so tell me about the kids, or tell me about your experience with this internship. And all of a sudden, it's just like, I light up. Like, you've heard that expression, right? You just light up about something and just like filled with this joy and just this. And she's like, she named that in front of me. And she goes, you have this light inside you. You have this going on inside you. And Kyle, you have to listen to that. Those words sunk in, kind of in that moment, and they still stick with me. And so I tried the chaplain thing, and those words just kept creeping, because the chaplain thing was like, this is not nourishing me. That's another way. Does it nourish me?
What is that? What is chaplain?
The chaplain is kind of like a spiritual counselor, spiritual counseling in a way. So I just want to say, so when you're thinking of your calling or thinking of passion, like what makes you light up and brings joy kind of inside and makes you feel like? So I just kind of wanted to share that with all of you.
Well, I like the other idea that if you're not in your calling, you might be feeling a little bit malnourished, And that's not to say like you're not going to have a bad day or, times are tough, but maybe when you're not doing the thing that you're made to do, it might be more of a struggle than if it were what you were made to do. Yeah?
Did the person who wanted to hire you say that God would like you more if you came here for free?
What do you mean?
That's your last question. Confirmation. All right. I think a lot of you have done this. I think a lot of you have already filled this in, but it might be a start to figuring it out if you haven't figured it out. So who are the people that matter most to you after family and friends?
Nobody.
Almost done. What do I most love to do, which is like up here. What 3 wishes do you have for the world? So that's like that diagram, what the world needs and your passions and how those come together. And what do you need? What do you need to be happy? So then you write those things in those boxes and then see if there's any kind of thing that would fit the center of the heart? Like, is there something? It doesn't have to be a job, remember. Calling is not necessarily a job. Vocation is not job, it's who you are. So maybe it's something that hasn't even been discovered yet. Maybe it's something brand new. All right, so if anybody would like one of us, Angie or Kyle or me, to look at your 4 areas and just kind of think out loud about what would go in the heart, we're available. If anybody wants to share, if you have a good experience with this and you put something in the heart that you weren't aware of. Anybody? Anybody discover something in there today? No? Alright, well if you want help looking at your 4 areas and figuring out what might go in the heart part, stick around for a couple minutes.
Not, you're done.
Otherwise, we'll see you next week.
I like Set It Off. Set It Off. Oh yeah. My favorite song for Set It Off is I also like here. Pink this guy.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, my favorite song is The Bad Readers or The
Okay, stop.